Everybody, thanks for watching and thanks for taking the time to purchase and support. Welcome to the 7th book in the Bible series, which is the book of Judges. So now, we left off the book of Joshua, and Joshua dies at the end of Joshua. As I talked about before, in that book, you have first 12 books are about conquest. The second 12 was basically them dividing up the land. So then when we come to the book of Judges. And the book of Judges is like, come on. It's like when you pay attention to everything that has been taking place, it's going to really get into that whole question of, who are these people? These Israelites. Are they sane? Is something wrong with them? After everything that has taken place, how could they continuously, doubt and disobey God after the many wars and the miracles and the things they have seen? How could they go on the journeys that they went on? How could they make the decisions that they made? So you have in Judges, Joshua was dead and gone. So Moses died. He was a leader. Joshua was named leader. Joshua died. And now the Israelites are basically left without a leader. So, God tells them clear as day, Deuteronomy 7:3. He basically tells them, do not intermarry with these people. Don't make a covenant with them or what have you. Don't give your sons to their daughters and vice versa. And this is exactly what they do. They go on ahead and intermarry with the Canaanites and with other people. So what happens is every time the Israelites disobey God, he sends in an army. He sends in another people to basically conquer the Israelites, right? They go in to conquer the Israelites, and God sends in a judge or a deliverer to basically judge Israel and deliver them out of the hands of the new oppressor. And this happens over and over again. It's basically what the book of Judges is about. So again, you would think at this time they were learning a lesson and they wouldn't disobey clearly the God that's basically responsible for their achievements thus far and their success. And you have to understand at this time the reason why Judges Joshua ended off. Same thing with Deuteronomy. The reason why you have these chapters end off with the breaking up of the land. So same thing. Joshua dies, the land is being split up, and you have now the Israelites basically settling into different lands and different territories and doing their own thing or what have you. Same thing at the end of Joshua. So you have these people just basically doing their own thing. There's no leader now. They're getting conquered here and there in this civilization, so they split up now. So different civilizations of Hebrew tribes are sinning and breaking God's commandments or what have you, and he's sending people in there to conquer them and then sending somebody in there to basically judge them and to basically save them, as I said. So this is what takes place. So we're going to start here. Judges 3. Start at 5. And the children of Israel dwelt among the Canaanites, Hittites, and Amorites, and Perizzites, and Hivites, and Jebusites. These are the people they're supposed to be killing. Remember, they're dwelling with them. And they took their daughters to be their wives, and gave their daughters to their sons, and served their gods. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and forgot the Lord their God, and served Baalim, which is Baal, and the groves. Therefore the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel, and he sold them into the hands of, and this is a long one, Cushan-Rishathaim. This is how you pronounce it, believe it or not. Cushan-Rishathaim, who was the king of Mesopotamia. And the children served Cushan-Rishathaim 8 years. And when the children of Israel cried unto the Lord raised up a deliverer to the children of Israel, who delivered them, even Othniel, the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother. And the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he judged Israel, and went out to war. And the Lord delivered Cushan-Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia, unto his hand, and his hand prevailed against Cushan-Rishathaim, and the land had rest 40 years. Now understand, when they're saying this, they're trying to break up this time and stretch it out. So they're saying that you had this defiance of the people, And then they was basically, you got to pay attention to these times they're given. They was basically enslaved with these people for like 8 years. And he basically sent in a deliverer to save them. And then everything was cool for 40 years. 40 years passed. Everything cool. Notice this 40. And the land had rest 40 years. And Othniel, the son of Kenaz, died. And the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of the Lord. And this is 40 years after all that happened. And the Lord strengthened Eglon, the king of Moab, against Israel, because they had done evil in the sight of the Lord. And he gathered unto him the children of Ammon and Abimelech, and went and smote Israel, and possessed the city of palm trees. So the children of Israel served Eglon, the king of Moab, 18 years. But when the children of Israel cried unto the Lord raised up a deliverer, Ehud, the son of Jerah, a Benjamite, a man left-handed. It's a reason why they saying left-handed, putting that in there. Man left-handed, and by him the children of Israel sent a present unto Eglon, the king of Moab. So now basically what happens, you have Ehud, who is the left-handed, deliverer of Israel. He basically is trying to get rid of the king who's basically oppressing Israel at this time, which is Eglon. So the story, if you read it, of course, Ehud basically goes to Eglon and says, hey, I have a message from God that I want to tell you. So he basically sends all the bodyguards and everybody out of the room so that Ehud can basically tell him the story. And he reaches out with his left hand to basically distract Eglon, because he knows he's left-handed. And with his right hand, he has a dagger attached to his right hand, and he basically stabs him and kills him. Now, as you read, Eglon was supposedly big and fat king. So, it's kind of messy or what have you. So, stabs him, kills him, what have you. And they basically, will eventually get free. But they want you to believe, of course, in this story that God has some kind of, because he's God, divine sense of understanding to send a left-handed man, which most people are not left-handed, which is going to be easier to deceive the king once you get close enough to him to stab him with the blade from the right hand. I mean, it's just all stuff to just add more spooky stuff to the story, but, no validity. So the whole thing, again, in that context, you would ask yourself, well, again, if God is all-knowing, how come he's not able to see that the Hebrews, the Israelites, are going to keep on disobeying him, which is going to keep happening? Why is these people the chosen people when they continuously disobey God? It seems as if another people will be worthy of, God's power and everything he's trying to do for them, when clearly these Hebrews are disrespectful. They keep disobeying God, but God stays with them. As you read, God says he's getting ready to basically abandon the whole Hebrew project and basically abandon them and leave them. If he got to the point where he felt like he was going to abandon the Hebrews and get rid of them, why not just do that? Why not just put them in bondage, forever? Why not just move on to a different people? Why is he sticking with these people if you're going to have instances where you're going to send in armies to wipe them out, to kill them off until they cry out for help, and then you're going to send somebody to save them? This is what's taking place in the book of Judges. It's crazy madness, and you can understand now, as we go along, you'll see how the Hebrews try to justify this stuff to fit into their doctrine. But this is what's taking place at this point. You have them keep on disobeying God. They go into captivity and, killed and enslaved or what have you for a certain amount of years. And then they cry out to God, and then God send them somebody to come save them. And then they come and save them, so on and so forth. Look, we can go back right into the story with Moses. What took place? We don't know, what was really going on. It didn't happen. It's a story. Well, we know Moses come. He's a deliverer. Brings them out. The whole time they out there, after they've been saved, they bitching and complaining. Why are we out here? It's too hot. We're not eating it. Why you bring us out of Egypt? Let's go back. You're supposed to be the chosen people. Understand what it's saying. Ungrateful ass people. It's going to make sense later. And, bring them out. They disobey God. All this stuff happened. He kills off an entire generation of them, following Moses, remember. And then the next generation grows up with Moses. And then, they sin, and then you had Joshua come along, and then, everything's cool. They're conquering or what have you. And then they sin again. And then here you have, this is going to keep happening. You already had one instance where they were saved, and then 40 years passed, and then here they go again, breaking the laws, and then sinning again. So it's like, come on. It's going to get frustrating, as you'll see. It's so many questions you're going to have after this. So now, Ehud, basically, he kills him, and he's in a room now, so he has to escape. So now it says here, this is Judges 3:26. And Ehud escaped while they tarried and passed beyond the quarries and escaped unto Sirath. And it came to pass, when he was come, that he blew a trumpet in the mountain of Ephraim, and the children of Israel went down with him from the mount, and he before them. And he said unto them, Follow after me, for the Lord hath delivered your enemies the Moabites unto your hand. And they went down after him, and took the fords of Jordan towards Moab, and suffered not a man to pass over. And they slew of Moab at that time about 10,000 men, all lusty and all men of valor, and there escaped not a man. So Moab was subdued that day under the hand of Israel, and the land had rest 80 years. So they were saved. 40 years they had rest. Now, after him, it says in 31, and after him was Shamgar, the son of Anath, which slew of the Philistines 600 men with an ox goad, which this is an ox goad right here. And he also delivered Israel. So you had two deliverers, two judges, two deliverers come and save Israel. So when it's talking about Israel, it's talking about in different areas, because they all broke up land, and you have, this tribe here, that tribe there, what have you, and they keep getting conquered because within the tribes you have a lot of sin and people breaking the laws. It's going to get crazy. So you had deliverers come. So boom. One deliverer comes save them in one part, another deliverer comes save them in that part, and they all understanding what's going on. They're being conquered, but nobody seemingly cares about the history or what have you. So it says here, and this is chapter 4. After everything that happened, it says, and the children of Israel again did evil in the sight of the Lord, and Ehud was dead, and the Lord sold them into the hand of Jabin, king of Canaan, that reigned in Hazor, the captain of whose host was Sisera, which dwelt in Harosheth of the Gentiles. And the children of Israel cried unto the Lord, for he had 900 chariots of iron, and 20 years he mightily oppressed the children of Israel. And Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, she judged Israel at that time. And she dwelt under the palm tree of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel and Mount Ephraim, and the children of Israel came up to her for judgment. So now, the pattern is clear as day, and you can see what's happening. And this again is what the Hebrews used to justify our position today. I mean, look at how it reads in the Bible. You see, they broke off, they're in these different civilizations, but people are basically committing these sins. And then God sent somebody in to basically conquer. Now, when you look at it, it's giving you different deliverers in different places, but it's not being 100% clear on what tribe is basically sinning. So it leads you to basically guess when it says, God sold them into bondage or what have you. Is he talking about everybody? Is he talking about a certain tribe that disobeyed, or everybody in Israel? All the Hebrews were sold into bondage, and all the Hebrews suffered this. And that's one that's up in the air, because in some instances you're going to see they're fighting two different groups of people. So it leads you to believe that, those tribes were the ones who was basically enslaved. It's like the same whole thing when they came out of Jericho. You had the one Hebrew basically take idols or what have you from out of Jericho, and it was the reason why they didn't win the war at Ai. And what happened? They found out who it was, and they stoned them to death, and then they kept winning the wars again. But that was one person. So why wasn't everybody stoned to death? That wouldn't make sense. But why wasn't everybody in that tribe punished? So it leaves you to guess. You got to try to figure out, Is everybody being punished or just a group of people? That's important because it goes to the argument of the black Hebrews with all of us, being in bondage or what have you. Because clearly, if we all supposed to be Hebrews and a chosen people, what have you, not all of us were put in slavery, not every single black person. But this is the argument that they use. When you look at the pattern, we see what happened. They disobey God. God sent somebody to conquer them. And then they basically, beg for forgiveness or what have you. And then they are saved. You got to look at this now and understand what's taking place. Because I don't think a lot of people are going to get it. Who are the people who are conquering them? African people. Where has this ever happened? We can't find this. Because remember, it starts off with them dwelling in the land of the Hittites and the Canaanites and the Perizzites and what have you. People who they conquered already, who they were supposed to have had utterly destroyed. So how is it any of them left? What is it talking about here? This is one of the clues it's giving you, to showing you that we're talking about African people. So, we conquered the Hittites. You're supposed to conquer the Perizzites and the Jebusites already. How is these people still around? Y'all went out and did all this conquest. Y'all supposed to have killed them all. So how was these people still even existing for them to be able to dwell with them? There's a flaw in the story right there. So, for the black Hebrew argument, for their argument, you have clear mixing. It's talking about right there. They mixed in with these people, gave their daughters unto their sons, and so on and so forth. So you have this mixture, and it's just like I've been telling you what took place. And look at it on a historical level of what took place when you had, the Europeans coming into these different lands and mixing in with the Africans, which took place. Mixing in with the Arabs, what took place? The Bible is giving you the same story and telling you that it was against God and everything. It wasn't supposed to happen. It's trying to give you what they did and hide it within the story when you begin to understand it. But the Hebrews are looking at it, the black Hebrews are looking at it and trying to piggyback on it and make it fit with where we are today, saying this is exactly what happened. We kept on disobeying, and just like in the Bible we see God send the people to enslave them, he did the same thing to us, which is why we went into slavery with the Arabs and slavery with the transatlantic slave trade. And that, he's supposed to send a deliverer to save us after we cried out, which some of them might actually tell you was Abraham Lincoln. You gotta understand how this stuff is being put. So when you're reading about it in the Bible now, you can get how they got to this point. When you see that these people were stupid, because that's the question you should be asking yourself. What's wrong with these people? Why the hell they keep on disobeying after everything happened for them? I mean, it's only 40 years later. They're still in the memory of the people. It's still written down. They practice and they're supposed to read this stuff every day. So how is it that they keep on sinning after they keep on being delivered? And they know what's going to happen if they sin again. How can they sin again? It doesn't make sense. So I point this out to the Hebrews to show them that Deuteronomy 28, written 1604, 1611, during the time of slavery, was purposely put there to deceive us. Plain and simple, but to also justify to the slave owners, to the people who was basically doing this enslaving, that this was supposed to happen. So if you understand, one, they taught to them back then that this was the case. If you have a Christian civilization, which they try to back out of it now, but it was based on Christianity. If you have a Christian civilization who believe that the Bible is real and that God sent them in to basically conquer us, that this was supposed to be, then, they're going to do it. And that's what it was. And then again, as I said, when you read slave narratives, this is exactly what they say. I showed you from the Time magazine, who did the whole article on the slave masters using the Bible to justify slavery. But they was clearly not trying to point out the whole black Hebrew thing, because they don't want to go that route. That can't be known mainstream. That's for people to read and figure out themselves. But that's clearly what they was going off of as far as the part of us being cursed. Now, of course, these Masonic and these learned slave masters understood that it was all a deception anyway. It's all bullshit. But if you can get the Africans to believe it, if you can tell them that story and get them to believe that they are somehow chosen people and this is what God has supposed to be has done to them because they disobey, and everything will be fine later on. Now, if you can get them to believe that, which we obviously did, it would get us to be more calm, more accepting of our enslavement rather than fight them at every twist and turn. The Bible was used in many different ways throughout, many different centuries to appeal to people in different ways. It's, again, all about how the book is taught, especially when you have a people you're teaching it to that can't even read the damn book, plain and simple. And then if you get one, because they always had that one who they had preach, taught them little bits about the Bible and taught them how to basically teach it to the people. And if you got that one person who they trust to teach them and tell them that this is the case, then of course you had people believe in it. You got to look at those pictures. You got to look at the fact that you had people in church during the time of slavery teaching the Bible to slaves. I mean, what was they telling them? What was the story? How do you get a people to believe in a God that's supposed to be good or what have you, yet they are enslaved? You have to come up with an alternative story to tell them. And that's exactly what they did with the book. It's not a coincidence that you have slavery in the Bible attached. Plain and simple. Right around the time when slavery is big, you have this book come out, the King James Version, which has a totally different Deuteronomy than all the other ones that's pertaining to slavery. That is not a coincidence. I don't understand how the Hebrews is looking at it as such. As it being true. It's not a coincidence. But if you're looking at the whole story and you're going through Deuteronomy and then you get to Judges and you see what's taking place of them constantly disobeying and so on and so forth, you will eventually come to that understanding, because they probably stopped at Judges. Who knows? You probably come to understanding because you'll have a lot of Hebrews point out stuff that took place in Judges, and they'll give you the verses and they'll say, see, this is what happened. We kept disobeying. So you talking about this time. We're only in the 7th book. You got a whole bunch more books to go. So we're talking about the Hebrews disobeying, and during this time frame, we talking about BCE still. Yeah, it took, how many years? Over 1,000 years for God to finally say, okay, I had enough. It's been 1,000 years of y'all disobeying me. Y'all ain't never gonna get right. I'm gonna throw y'all enslaved for 400 years or what have you. Not to 40 years. Throw y'all enslaved with the Arabs for 1,200 years or what have you. And the transatlantic slave trade, it doesn't fit. So you got to put things where they fit and understand, this stuff is completely out of place, and it don't make sense for a people to have these kinds of blessings, that kind of success under this God, and then disobey. It don't make sense. It don't make sense for a people to do that. It's just crazy. So we know, as we talked about before, you have the Hebrews living with the Canaanites and the Perizzites and all these people they're supposed to have killed. And you have now Sisera, who was the commander of the Canaanite army, oppressing the Hebrews. And you have Deborah and Jael basically come and be the judge and deliverer in this instance. And what happens is Jael basically goes into the tent and takes one of the tent nails and basically hammers it into the temple of Sisera, the commander of the Canaanite army, kills them, and they basically end up freeing the Hebrews this time. So now it says, this is Judges 5:31. So let all thy enemies perish, O Lord, but let them that love him be as the sun when it goeth forth in his might. And the land had rest 40 years. Now, chapter 6 starts off. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord. Again. Here we go. So after they delivered, 40 more years passed. Here they go, being evil again. So did evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hand of Midian 7 years. And the hand of Midian prevailed against Israel, and because of the Midianites, the children of Israel made them the dens which are in the mountains and caves and strongholds. And it was so, when Israel had sown, that the Midianites came up, and the Amalekites, and the children of the east, even they come up against them. And they encamped against them, and destroyed the increase of the earth, till thou come unto Gaza, and left no sustenance for Israel, neither sheep, nor ox, nor ass. For they came up with their cattle and their tents, and they came as grasshoppers for multitude. for both they and their camels were without number, and they entered into the land to destroy it. And Israel was greatly impoverished because of the Midianites, and the children of Israel cried unto the Lord. So now, this time, you have Gideon, who's basically the judge and deliverer of Israel. So basically, long story short, you have the Israelites basically play this music and cause the Midianites to basically turn on each other and start killing each other. So this is basically how they come out of this captivity from Gideon. So now they would eventually become free, and it says here, Judges 8:27, and Gideon made a ephod, which is basically like a priestly robe, thereof, and put it in his city, even in Ophrah, and all Israel went thither, a whoring after it, which thing become a snare unto Gideon and to his house. Thus was Midian subdued before the children of Israel, so that they lifted up their heads no more. And the country was in quietness 40 years in the days of Gideon. And Jerubbaal, which is another name for Gideon, the son of Joash, went and dwelt in his own house. They start calling him that because he basically was delivering the people from the hands of Baal. So Jerubbaal is Gideon because he saved people from worshiping Baal. And Gideon had 70 sons of his body begotten, for he had many wives. And his concubine that was in Shechem, she also bare him a son, whose name he called Abimelech. And Gideon, the son of Joash, died in a good old age, and was buried in the sepulchre of Joash his father, in Ophrah of the Abezerites. And it came to pass, as soon as Gideon was dead, that the children of Israel turned again, and went a whoring after Baal. Baal-in, it's Baals, it's all Baal, and made Baal be of right their God. And this is Baal-berith. And the children of Israel remembered not the Lord their God, who had delivered them out of the hands of all their enemies on every side. Neither showed they kindness to the house of Jerubbaal, who is named Gideon, according to all the goodness which he had showed unto Israel. And again, different times back then. But I look at different civilizations and the stuff that they did, the paths they took. Common sense paths, you might as well say. Don't do this, don't go here, stick with your people, invade this territory, leave these people alone. Common sense stuff we see throughout real history. It doesn't make sense. It just don't fit. And it's the part that they need you to believe that this stuff took place. It don't make sense to have people who clearly getting some divine help, who have clearly, you've been killed and enslaved and so on and so forth. Why in the world would you continue to keep on disobeying this God who clearly has the power to put you in bondage and take you out? What's going on? So the story, again, is all over the place. It's weird that we keep seeing these people continuously disobey when they have everything right in front of them. What is the purpose of life? What's the point? If, you have a guy giving you everything, it's going to give you a good life and give you, land and everything you could possibly want in life right there in front of you. All you got to do is obey, these commandments. If you don't, you're going to end up being killed anyway. It don't make sense for them to keep sinning over and over again, and it's going to keep happening. So now understand, you have Abimelech, son of Gideon, who was a good judge. Abimelech, his son, is basically ruling over Israel, but he's a tyrant. He's evil. He's doing a bunch of crazy stuff, disobeying the laws or what have you, and it's a lot that's going on. So now when we read in Judges, this is Judges 9:22, it says, when Abimelech had reigned 3 years over Israel, and I want you to take note of Judges 9:23, write it down, then God sent an evil spirit between Abimelech and the men of Shechem. And the men of Shechem dwelt treacherously with Abimelech, that the cruelty done to the 70 sons of Jerubbaal, which is Gideon, might come, and their blood be laid upon Abimelech their brother, which slew them, and upon the men of Shechem, which aided him in the killing of his brethren. So then, the question would be, again, when people keep telling you about this all good, great God or what have you, Again, clearly, these are people who have not read the book. Now, you can point out in that verse right there, God sending evil spirit. What is God doing sending evil spirits? And you're going to get all kinds of crazy answers and justifications from Christians that try to make this work. But the devil is about evil spirits. What is God doing possessing or being able to command evil spirits if he's supposed to be God the good? And you got to get this out of people's head who got this whole notion that God is just good and fairy tales and lollipops and, daisies or what have you, and just only good, and Satan is just all the bad. When you see clearly in the Bible on multiple occasions, which there'll be more we'll get into, that God is sending evil spirits. God is doing evil things. And we're going to get into this. So it's crazy when you actually read in the book and getting into it, you see what's taking place. You see what's actually happening within this whole mystical realm of good and evil, where God's supposed to only be good, Satan's supposed to only be bad. It's bullshit. It's bogus. Clearly when you read these verses. So now basically what happens to Abimelech, a woman basically drops a rock on his head, and he's, not dead yet. He's getting ready to die. He know he's going to die. So he basically does not want to be killed, or he don't want to be known to have been killed by the hands of a woman. So he basically asks, one of the soldiers to basically kill him. So the soldier, kills Abimelech, stabs him, right through his stomach. And that's basically the end of him. This is a Hebrew who we're talking about. And again, it just puts you in that whole mindset that if these Hebrews can't even on the throne rule themselves and be just and be normal, who are these people? These people crazy. How is these the chosen people? It don't make sense. It don't fit that these stubborn ass people, these crazy sick people who did some sick shit in the Bible, is the chosen people of God. We're supposed to believe this God is just all great and good or what have you. And we see him doing evil things. And if you read, he basically puts a curse on those people of Shechem, the men or what have you, after all this stuff is done. This is another curse. So God's putting curses on people who send an evil spirit. He making people kill 70 brothers that they have or what have you. It's a bunch of craziness when you start to read, and it's like, come on, what's going on here? So you have, basically, the end of Abimelech, the people being basically, freed again or what have you. And then this is what happens. Chapter 10 says, now after Abimelech, there arose to defend Israel Tola, the son of Pua, the son of Dodo or Dudo, however you want to pronounce that, a man of Issachar, and he dwelt in Shamar in Mount Ephraim. And he judged Israel 23 years and died and was buried in Shamar. And after him arose Jair, a Gileadite, and judged Israel 22 years. And he had 30 sons and rode on 30 ass colts. And they had 30 cities, which are called Havoth Jair unto this day, which are in the land of Gilead. And Jair died and was buried in Kaman. And the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of the Lord, and served Baal and Ashtaroth, and the god of Syria, and the gods of Zidon, and the gods of Moab, and the gods of the children of Ammon, and the gods of the Philistines, and forsook the Lord, and served him not. And the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel, and he sold them unto the hands of the Philistines, and unto the hands of the children of Ammon. And that year they vexed and oppressed the children of Israel 18 years, all the children of Israel that were on the other side of Jordan, and the land of the Amorites, which is in Gilead. Now you got to look at it and understand again, why is it constantly giving you Baal worship? Constantly over and over again. Why is it that you have clear as day, the God that they're supposed to be serving doing what's right for them, putting them in power, making sure they got land, making sure they got everything they need, they're dividing it up against the people, everything is going good under this so-called God of the Bible, but they keep running the Baal? What is that? It's because in real life, plain and simple, they know when you go back and start doing the research, what you're going to see the people worshiping during that time is Baal, which is the sun. You have Ashtaroth, the moon. Plain and simple. They know this is what you find back in ancient times. This is what you're going to find. So they can jump on and piggyback and say, okay, yeah, see, I told you that the Hebrews was worshiping Baal, because that's all you find back then. That's what you find in Israel, the so-called Israel, after the Egyptians fell. You find this worship of Baal and the worship of Astaroth and the worship of all these moon and solar deities. They know that was the case. You're not going to find nothing about this God that they talk about in the Bible. Where's the stuff to him? If everybody going out their way to worship these gods, how is it we're only finding the other gods that's being worshipped? We're not finding this God in the Bible that's being worshipped. Who is this dude? What is his symbol that we're supposed to find that's going to be pertaining to this particular God in the Bible, so we can equal him to the book? Everybody else we can find, but we can't find whoever this dude is. Nothing, because it's right there in front of your face, the sun. I mean, that's what we know it is, and they're trying to give you that hint. Find everything else, Astaroth, we find Baal Hadad, all this stuff. We find El, we find, all the Egyptian gods or what have you, but there is nothing giving us who this dude is, or this supposed God that we can find in name or in, look in the ancient world and pertaining to this specific God in the Bible. So they're putting that out there with Baal and all these deities to try to, basically make it fit with what people have been finding back in ancient times around this area. Nothing to do with this God in the Bible, but everything to do with these solar deities and lunar deities that we know actually was really worship. This Bible God, biblical God, bullshit. So now basically what happens is you have Jephthah. Jephthah would be the new judge that would basically come and save this, generation of Hebrews. So Jephthah basically, prays to God, and God lets him know what's going to happen. And he tells God that, if you do give me the power to save the people, what have you, I will basically sacrifice the first thing out of my house. So, he goes on ahead and saves Israel, saves the people. The first thing out of his house was his daughter. So he had to sacrifice his daughter. It's a little bit of, touchy moment and debating here, but the daughter's basically with it. Like, it is what it is. So he sacrificed his daughter, and we go ahead and read here. And it says, let's go Judges chapter 12, starting at 7. And Jephthah judged Israel 6 years. Then died Jephthah the Gileadite, and was buried in one of the cities of Gilead. And after him Ibzan the Bethlehem judged, Israel. And he had 30 sons and 30 daughters, whom he sent abroad, and took in 30 daughters from abroad for his sons, and he judged Israel 7 years. Then Ibzan died. Then died Ibzan, and he was buried in Bethlehem. And after him Elon, a Zebulunite, judged Israel, and he judged Israel 10 years. And Elon the Zebulunite died, and was buried in Ajalon, in the country of Zebulun. And after him Abdon, the son of Hillel, a Fatherite, judged Israel, and he had 40 sons and 30 nephews that rode on 70 ass colts. And he judged Israel 8 years. And Abdon, the son of Hillel, the Fatherite, died, and was buried in Phavdon, in the land of Ephraim, in the mount of the Amalekites. So again, a bunch of judges, a bunch of time passed. People sinning, and it's just on and on, constant stuff. It says in 13, and the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hands of the Philistines for 40 years. And there was a certain man of Zorah, of the family of the Danites, whose name was Manoah, and his wife was barren, and bare not. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto the woman, and said unto her, Behold, now thou art barren, and bearest not, but thou shalt conceive and bear a son. This is where Samson's about to come in, people. Now, therefore, beware, I pray thee, and drink not wine, nor strong drink, and eat not any unclean thing. For lo, thou shalt conceive and bear a son, and no razor shall come on his head. For the child shall be a Nazarite unto God, and Nazarites don't shave nothing. For the child shall be a Nazarite unto God from the womb, and he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hands of the Philistines. So in the book of Judges, as many of you already know, Samson becomes a deliverer, basically. But the story of Samson is crazy, and I get into this in previous videos about the comparison between Samson and Hercules. It's clear as day where they got the character of Samson from when you understand the story. So, Greek mythology, because the Greeks gave us this book, as we know, appears a lot in the Bible, as we talked about before, with Deucalion and Pharaoh and the whole Noah's Ark story, Pandora's box, and Garden of Eden and what have you. Whole thing, Eve letting out the ills onto mankind. Same thing with Pandora. It's replete throughout the Bible. You find Greek mythology within the book, and it's the Greeks just trying to find something to put into the book to get their story out, to put out what they want to put out. So we understand the whole story of Samson, and we know what basically happens. Mom not able to conceive. God basically says, as I read, what's going to happen. But you have later, remember Samson. He, for some reason, is obsessed with these Philistines, and he takes a Philistine wife. And remember, he tells the people that during this feast of 7 days, I'm going to give you a riddle. And if you can solve the riddle, then I'll give you 30 garments and 30 sheets or what have you. And if not, you got to give it to me.